Hello and welcome to 7 for 12 with me, Steve Harmison, and my good pal from talkSPORT, Jon Norman. Going to look back at the 2020 ODI series against Sri Lanka. Look forward to the Pakistan series and Sri Lanka going back home to face India, which is India's second string. You're watching 7 for 12. Well, Jon, looking back at this series, England masterful as usual. But have Sri Lanka got anything to hope for when they go back to face India's second string when they get home in less than a week's time?
Do you know what? I think they do. Look, I know it's a little bit of a crazy statement, but if you have a look at the 3 T20s and also the 3 ODIs, we'll talk about England coming up. There's going to be a special show. This section, we're going to be talking about Sri Lanka, and then very next section, we'll talk about England. But if you look at some of the key performances that have come through over the 3 T20s and the 2 ODIs, because the 6th one was abandoned because of the weather, there are 4 or 5 key individuals in that Sri Lankan side, and their names crop up. There is Chameera, the fast bowler. There's Hasaranga, who's provided, some useful cameos with the bat and also taken some big wickets as well. I thought Kusala PERERA, the way that he's captained the side and came back after the 3 players was sent back to Sri Lanka after breaking COVID rules up in Durham. I thought it was exemplary. He played a really fine knock in the first ODI. And then, of course, there's Shanaka, who has weighed in with 3 scores of note across the T20s and also the ODIs. And you're starting to build a little picture of a side that actually does have the semblance of some solidity and also has got players that show that they've got some kind of reliability. You've also got players like dhananjaya de Silva, who weighed in with 91 as well. So I'm just starting to think, if you take this Sri Lankan side out of conditions which are so alien to them, remember, they came to England under a cloud, loads of contract problems. So that's weighing in the background. Then they're coming up against a fresh, brilliant England team in masterful conditions for swing bowling. And it's no surprise that they're struggling in the power play, losing wickets early in exactly the same way England struggle when they go to Sri Lanka and the ball's spinning left, right, and all over the place. So I put it to you, Harmy, if you take those performances, and then if you add back the likes of Dick Weller, Gunnar Talaka, and Mendes, possibly the returning Angelo Matthews, coming up against a B India side in home conditions in Sri Lanka, considering they're going to be match fit, they would have played 6 games or 5 games. I think Sri Lanka have actually got a bit of a chance to make that series with India competitive.
Yeah, I agree to an extent that they're going to go home. I actually think they're going home better than they came. And I think that's, if I was Mickey Arthur, Tom Moody, Grant Flower, the coaching staff that that are around Sri Lanka. I was at Chester Street at Durham for the first game. I was at the Oval for the second game. I can't remember the ends of it because I was there on a hospitality nice afternoon. But it was good to watch. Some of the stuff they were never going to compete with England. They were never going to compete with.
Well, see, this is the thing. So Mickey Arthur would have known that Sri Lanka were never going to beat England, right? Yeah. So at the start of this series, England, they wanted to find out a little tweak here or there about the T20 side. And they found out. They found out plenty. Sri Lanka, what is it that Mickey Arthur, when he landed in England a few weeks back, what is it that he would want to have seen from his side? And do you think he's actually seen something in some of those performances that he will be disappointed as a competitive individual who wants to win matches, but will he have seen enough to mean that he can go back to play India feeling that actually they're actually in a decent state?
I think he will. I really do. I think he will. The things he'll have seen, he'll look at the leader, the captain. I thought the captain batted well. He batted well at Durham.
Yeah.
You mentioned Chameera. I thought Chameera's bowled well throughout the series, as has Hasaranga and batted. I liked him because he showed a bit of character. He showed a bit of fight and a bit of dog in him, which you need in England. You might not need it overseas. For me, you need more heart than you need talent, because talent will get you through, because talent will come through. But if you've got no heart and desire to get better and improve, then you're going nowhere. And I think that's the biggest thing that Mickey Arthur will look back at. And you know what? It was tough. Facing 93-mile-an-hour rockets of Mark Wood. Facing Woakes swinging the ball from just outside, sort of middling off to missing off stump. And 2 brand new balls, David Willey bringing the ball back and going away. Sam Curran doing exactly the same. Tom Curran down at Bristol, which is great, by the way. We'll come back to Tom Curran because I thought he was fantastic today. But when you look at what Sri Lanka have got to do to improve, is play in these conditions a bit more. Get out there and not be worried about failure. Because if you come in and you improve, and what I meant by it right at the very start, you come back, you go home, better than you arrived. And if you do that, you've got a great chance of improving as a squad, coming together as a unit. And I think it depends on whether that was a statement of intent by the Sri Lankan government, by the board, or whether it was Mickey Arthur himself to send these 3 players home for breaking rules and say, we're not going to put up with anything. You might have,
I think it was,
status.
Yeah, I think that Mickey Arthur, I don't think they had any choice, did they? They broke the COVID.
I don't think they had any choice. But
what we've seen from Mickey Arthur is that he is prepared to make the big calls. He's prepared to drop big names for the good of the team, because he's about the team. So that would be interesting in itself. But look,
one of the big ones, though, John, is the Matthews status, the Matthews situation. I look at this and thinking Angelo Matthews not coming to England for whatever reason could enhance Angelo Matthews' ego. It could enhance his status within Sri Lankan cricket. If it's a complete shambles, the fall by the wayside in Sri Lanka are a joke. I didn't see that. I didn't see them being a complete joke. I think there's room to be positive. There's things to improve on. But now there's some young players there who show Mickey Arthur and the selection unit that we are building something very, very good. Now, I think Sri Lanka need Angelo Matthews. They need a senior figure. They need a lead man. They need the senior players like Dick Weller and who has gone home. But they need Matthews in a place where, right, we now can perform without you if you don't want to be in here. But we'd actually like you in here because we need guidance. We need somebody to look up to. We need a figure that we can call on in situations of times of trouble. And I think that's what Matthews would give them. Whether Matthews changes his outlook and goes in there and thinks, right, I am this father figure. These are going to give me the energy. I'm going to go in and show my experience and give them a little bit of arm around the shoulder, a little bit of guidance when I'm in the middle, tough sort of situations. It might get the better out of Angelo Matthews. I'm just speculating. I don't know. But that will be beneficial towards Sri Lankan cricket. So all that there is positive. They've lost 5 games out of 6. The other one rained off. But I actually think Sri Lanka are going home better than he actually landed on the British Isles. Okay. And that, for me, was the biggest thing I would be looking for if I was Mickey Arthur.
Okay, one last thing as well. How difficult, or is it? I mean, I remember Sri Lanka a few years ago. They had 4 wicket-keepers in their side, I think. And yet you've got this situation where Kusala PERERA is opening the batting, he's wicket-keeping, and he's captaining. I mean, that must be an area that Mickey Arthur will be looking at addressing, because that seems too many roles to me.
Yeah, possibly. But in the shorter format, I don't know. I think you get away in a shorter format. I really do. I think you can get away with it in the shorter format. He seems like a no-nonsense sort of character. Not a lot's going on in there. Just seems it's easy. See ball, hit ball. See ball, catch ball. I played with a wicketkeeper who I thought was one of the best wicketkeepers batsmen I ever played with. A kid called Phil Mustard. He played a handful of games for England. But there wasn't a lot going on inside Colonel's head. He wasn't the brightest. And it was like the simple instructions was, Colonel, that red or white thing, catch it. Or that red or white thing, hit it. Now, that seems to be the way that PERERA has his game. Catches it nicely, hits it with freedom. The captaincy side, we don't know how savvy he is when it comes to it. But I think in the shorter format, I don't see there being a great deal of problem. If he goes into the longer format and he opens the baton, then I think there might be an issue with him keeping wicket.
Okay, well, that's Sri Lanka. I've made my case for why Sri Lanka are actually going to give India a bit of a test when they come up against each other. Now we're going to turn attention, though. We're going to start looking at England ahead of the visit of Pakistan. Okay, well, Harmy, we went a little bit over in the last section, definitely longer than 7 minutes and 12 seconds. We could keep things a little bit straighter here because look, England steamrolled Sri Lanka, but let's just have a look at the T20s to start off with. England winning it to zip ahead of the World T20. That's what it's all about, isn't it? And this is one of the reasons for the World Super League and all of this. There's so little relevance about a lot of the bilateral cricket. We're always having to hang the points of interest on upcoming ICC events, and the fact that we do have this qualification period hopefully will change things slightly. But coming into that series, there were runs for Butler before he got injured. Milan, reminding everyone why he's world #1 and all that. Wickets for Curran, for Rashid. They really spread it around. So what did England really learn at the end of the T20 series that they possibly didn't know before it?
I don't think they learned anything. I think they just complicated it more than anything else. I think they complicated the matter that we are a good side. We have got 24 players playing white ball cricket out of their skin. Nobody wants them to get dropped. When they come in, it is a great place for Owen Morgan. You know, Paul Collingwood, Graham Thorpe, Chris Silverwood at the top to be in. I actually just think they complicated the matters. They need the T20 to start tomorrow so they can pick a squad. Unfortunately, have the conversation like they had with a heartbreaking conversation with David Willey. And how good did he do, by the way, in this in the 50-over competition? To put all that distraction behind him, get him in there, and he got his 50th cap off his dad. So well done to David Willey for coming back the way he did. But England are going to have that conversation with 3 or 4 players for the World T20, or are they? Or are the ICC going to get England out of trouble by saying you can have 18, 19 players because of COVID? If they do, I think Owen Morgan, Chris Silverwood, I don't think they'll breathe a sigh of relief. But I think it will be making it a lot easier than have what they did with David Willey when Jofra Archer had to come in. For me, the one person that has to go to the World T20, and other than Owen Morgan, at first on my team sheet, Joe Root has to go to that competition. Joe Root is the best all-format batsman that we've ever had. But I thought Peterson was the best player. Peterson was the best player I ever played with. This kid is the best player of all formats that we have ever produced. And he showed it in the one days that comes. For me, he has to play in the World T20. And I don't think
he can bowl.
And he goes there for me in front of a whole host of names. You can chuck any name you want, and I take Joe Root over them every time. Because well, I'll tell you what, there's the one there. Ben Stokes. Ben Stokes, you know, Durham guy, Durham lad, love him to bits. I'm not saying he goes instead of Ben Stokes, but I have him in my team. I have Root in my team. Because at this minute in time, do you think England do not know what to do with Ben Stokes?
Hang on, let me just rewind you slightly, because these pitches that England are probably going to be playing on in the UAE are going to be dogs, aren't they?
Absolute dogs.
To me, you know, one of the criticisms of Root is that he's not as big hitting. He doesn't hit around the crease like other batsmen, which I'm not sure, because we saw him do that role at the World T20 in 2016. It's been so long since we've had a World T20. But I would have thought a guy that's adept at rotating strike, can play all around the wicket, on pitches that, let's be honest, this isn't going to be 240, plays 230. No. The IPL would have just been played there. So they might be fresh pitches, but chances are you're going to need more of an accumulator than a big hitter. And England have got the big hitters covered, haven't they? So throw in the fact that he can bowl. I mean, you know, Liam Dawson, apparently, you know, we've been touting him as a third spinner for England in the World T20. We haven't seen him play once. No. And Joe Root, we know, can bowl. So I can see why you're so passionate about his inclusion.
I want him in. I want him in my. I don't want him in my squad. I want him in my side. I think England got to find a place to find a way to get Joe in, and it's hard, and it is very, very hard. You know, Milan proved again that he's one of our best 2020 players. It is such a difficult team to get into, but his ability to hit the ball in areas, in gaps, it's not crash bang wallop. It's not all it's not all muscle. And I think in the UAE, quarterfinal, semi-final, final, when the pitches are tired, We need somebody that can sweep, reverse sweep, can hit the ball into the gaps, into areas, into little pockets, and run hard. Plus, I think you're going to need a third spinner. And I think you're going to need a third spinner. Yeah. And I think Joe Root will give you that option. In the last T20 World Cup, he was one of our best bowlers. I actually don't see him being any less a bowler than what he is now. If not, he's a better bowler. The best thing about Joe Root, he's got one of the best cricket brains I've ever seen. You know, he's England captain, yes, but his ability to manipulate and play the situation, for me, is why he is the best all multi-format player. In a test match, he can absorb pressure. In a test match, he can release pressure. In one-day games, he understands the situation that needs to be played at the right time, and he plays it. And more often than not, he plays it to his optimum ability. This guy is only not playing in white ball cricket was because, to give him a break with all the COVID stuff that's going on, for him to be captain as best he can with the red ball team. We are now in tournament phase. For me, he just goes over the top of a lot of people, even who have done well. He goes back into that squad, back into that group, because we want our best team.
All right, then, before we wrap up the show, the other players that really stood out, do you see them starting in that first T20? There was Chris Woakes, who came back to the T20 side, man of the match, and then performed brilliantly throughout the ODIs. There's David Willey, who you've already made mention. And then there's Sam Curran, who took a 5 for at the Oval. Are these guys going to be near the first 11? They're going to be in the first 11?
I think Woakes in the World T20. I think Woakes might just miss out because of Archer. We've got to remember, is Archer going to be fit? Yeah. I can see Archer, Wood, Sam Curran being our 3 seamers. I would then have Stokes is in there to fiddle you an over or 2 because you've got him in as your baton. I'm just talking about the bowlers here. And then I think you'd have the spin twins of
Rashid
and Rashid and Ali, and I would find a place for Root as well. And so that gives you options if you get on an absolute raging Bonson and you've got good balance. You've got balance. That for me would be my bowling unit. Comes in to the batting side of it. You've got Roy Bairstow, Butler, Stokes, Morgan,
and Root.
That's it, Root. And unfortunately, I might have to leave the best player in the world out in the world rankings to get Joe Root into it, in David Malan, which is awful. But Owen Morgan's just said in a press conference after the game, I'm here to make big decisions. Boy, Owen, you're going to have to make a big one, because that team is not only going to get from 17 to 24 to 15. If you don't get the allowance, you've then got to get it into 11. Good luck.
Okay, quick, just before we finish, Pakistan are in the UK, and we can expect a little bit more of stiff resistance from the Pakistanis. There will be a full series preview of this as well on following on podcast, available via the talkSPORT app, and also we will be covering the series here on 7for12 as well. But you can expect, look, the thing with this Pakistan side, and we don't need to go into cliche about them, because this is a very hard-working Pakistan side. This is a Pakistan side that's played a lot of cricket. This is a Pakistan side that has been to New Zealand. It's been all over the world in the last 12 months. They, of course, were in England last year. And they're off to the West Indies after this series. So they wouldn't have had the match fitness, but I expect them to get better as the series progresses. They've got a great coach. They've got bags of experience now and that undoubted talent. And England are going to be tested.
Yeah, I don't think it's the Pakistan of old where you just don't know which Pakistan's going to turn up. If they turn up, then you think, oh, we're in a game here. They actually could beat us. If it's the Pakistan that's not that bothered and just fobbing off, then you think this is going to be a shambles. I don't see that anymore with this Pakistan side. I think they've got stealing determination about them, that they play more steady. They're not up and down roller coaster. And
there's a consistency and professionalism.
Exactly. And I actually think these have got, I think the Pakistan lot have got similar problems to England. They've got 14 or 15 very, very good players, and how do you fit them into an 11? And I think that will be England's big test. I still think England will be too strong for them over here.
Yeah.
Ball moving, early doors. I still think England's batting will outdo England's.
That's one thing we're going to remember. The conditions that Sri Lanka have had to play in have been so bad. The sun's got to come out at some point here in England. So, you know, maybe the power play won't be quite. And also, England won a lot of tosses as well. So, you know, I think that all things considered,
you're going to see a fairer contest. You're going to see a fairer contest between, I think, between England ball and Pakistan bat will be a lot closer than what England ball Sri Lanka bat would be. Yeah. But I actually think Pakistan ball will be a lot better and a lot more potent in questioning England's top order technique than Sri Lanka was. And I thought Sri Lanka bowled quite well, but I think it's the next level up. I think when you're looking at world rankings and you look at where they are in the charts, Sri Lanka are bottom 2 or 3. I think Pakistan are just hanging on to the coattails of the sort of third, fourth, and fifth sides of the world. And I think that little group there, I think they're the ones that are challenging England and India at this moment in time. So I think it'll be a good test for England, very good test for Pakistan. And I think we'll get a better test as a spectacle across the board, a fairer contest between bat and ball. And it's going to be really exciting.
Brilliant. Harmy, well, look, we're going to be covering here on 7 for 12 throughout this Pakistan series and then throughout the summer as well, every day of the India series. And this week, please, whatever you do, you've got to watch a brilliant test of time between Harmy and Mark Butcher. That's going to be landing on Wednesday. They go back to Sydney in 2003. It's brilliant. It's such what a wonderful, memorable test match for so many different reasons for both sides, but some really, truly funny stories as well. So, Harmy, go well. We'll chat to you soon. And if you've got this far, well, what are you waiting for? Subscribe, like, review, and comment. Harmy answers every single question. So we'll cover those as well as the summer progresses. But for now, thanks for watching.